Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Echoed Voice podcast. My name is BlueEmolga and this is episode 1. What a time to be alive. Today's episode is brought to you by Charlie's Gluten-Free Goodies. The plan for this podcast is to interview your favourites and mine, to see what got people into streaming, why they make the content they do, what they love about it, and a little about them as people in general. For the most part, I want to show off my friends and share a bit of their world with the wider world. Tonight's guest is WizzlerPlays, a Pokémon streamer from the London area who specialises in challenge runs as well as hosting competitions like the recently finished Nuzlocke and Load 2 tournament. So without any further delay, let's get to Wizzler. So welcome on in, Wizzler. How are you doing today?
I'm very well, my friend. How are you?
I'm pretty warm, not going to lie. It is that early summer heat is bearing down.
And yet not the summer sun, which is
No. It's just humid and horrid.
It is.
But yeah, how
Thank you for having me.
Oh no, my pleasure. Thank you for being here. Do you mind just giving a brief little self-intro, just in the event that people here haven't come across you before? Which they should have done, let's be fair.
No, it sounds good. I wouldn't say that, but that's very kind of you. No, I'm WizzlerPlays, so I'm a UK-based Pokemon streamer on Twitch, increasingly diversifying content. So we're sort of doing a fair bit of horror stuff. We're seeing some Star Wars stuff creep in. And generally speaking, if you like dad jokes and nerdy stuff, you'll have a place in my community. So... but streaming for around, I want to say, coming up to 2 years now. And yeah, very excited to be here.
That is wild that it's coming up to 2 years. But yeah, you're definitely diversifying. You've been doing, Last of Us as of late? Yep. You've previously done some other Pokemon stuff. You've done Jedi Survivor. Yeah.
Loads of things.
Spider-Man, if I'm not mistaken, as well.
Yes, correct. I'd forgotten that as well.
You can't forget Spider-Man.
No,
He's
I know.
a Spider-Man.
Exactly, and there's two of them in the game.
There's two of them, exactly.
Just have to remember one of them, and I'd have been fine. But there we go.
Well, instead of delving into what you have and haven't streamed, do you think you could tell me what got you into streaming? Like, was there anything that kind of kicked off the "I'm going to stream" kind of bug?
Yeah, I think we've spoken about this previously, and I've never really been one for Twitch. I generally haven't sort of watched a lot of people. So when the whole concept of streaming came around, it was very much of a fact of, well, I like to play games. It'd be nice just to be able to go and play a game, have a few people to chat to whilst I'm doing so. It actually started way back in lockdown where I was playing actually through Pokemon Sword and Shield, and I was doing a Nuzlocke at the time. And because my flatmates are starved for entertainment, we just connected the Switch to the TV and we played through. And we got to the Leon fight, and it was very dramatic. And I won right at the end with Colossal and all that good stuff. Very nice. And seeing these two who really weren't into Pokemon at all, get into it was a really nice moment. I was like, actually, this was really fun, and it elevated it to a whole new extent. So I thought, well, let's try and do that. And it took me a while to not so much pluck up the courage per se, but more just to actually get my head around how to do it all and then commit to doing it regularly.
It's not something that you can just pick up and run with. You have to look into it first, make sure you've got the right kind of connections, right equipment, and then you can kind of progress.
Well, exactly that. Yeah, I think as well, that's why I sort of mentioned that I'm sort of not really one for Twitch on a personal level, really, because actually I didn't even have that background to go into streaming with. It's not like I watched a number of streamers and then thought, okay, I'd like to do this as well. It was pretty much entirely off my own back. I think we spoke about this before, but just to bring everyone up to speed, I remember very vividly when I was raided for the first time, thinking I was getting like a virus or something like that, because I was like, "What's going on? Everyone's posting the same message. I don't get it." And I stand by my fears. Like, raid is a very aggressive term for something. It really
is. It really is. We're raiding. It does kind of evoke thoughts of the Vikings.
Exactly.
But no, this was just Joanna.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It was. It was. I remember it so vividly, and I've been incredibly grateful ever since. But
Oh,
it sort of gives you
fantastic.
the level of naivety that I had, or at least it gives you an idea of the level of naivety I had going into this whole process.
So you touched on streaming to kind of provide that entertainment for people who seemingly really got into what you were doing. Is that still the
Mm.
case, or has anything really changed for you there? Are you now streaming for other reasons, or is it just like you're in it now?
No, I think it's just a hobby. I think at this point, I think that you see a lot of people sort of start off with a desire to either have it as a part-time career or indeed go full-time or join a team. For me, it's very much I will continue to stream as long as I enjoy what I'm doing. And thankfully, I've been one very lucky to meet a number of amazing people through streaming, but also have a relatively consistent and really nice community that I'm very blessed to have. So I think as long as that community is still there and is interested in what I'm doing, then I suspect WizzlerPlays will
Hmm.
stay there as well.
And in my opinion, I think that's probably the right way to look at it. You don't want to be forcing that streaming. There's no real wrong way to do it. I mean, there are,
Mm.
but for the most part, no one's in a wrong way for streaming. But I
And I
think
think
to just be doing it for yourself and for
mm,
other people as just entertainment is all it is really at the end of the day. So yeah, I think look at it as a hobby is always my kind of approach as well.
yeah, I think that sort of is a really good point from my perspective because you see, I felt immediately that when I started, right, I had to have a very specific way of doing things. There was I don't know how many people in the world. There's probably like three of them, of whom I believe you're one, who
Mhm.
sort of saw the very early concepts for my channel in terms of no camera, just talking, not even a ping picture or anything. It just very sort of minimalist, no swearing,
Oh, I
very
remember those days.
PG, exactly. So, and not necessarily that being swearing makes something inherently better because it's adult and that's fun, but it's more just. I think it was very clear that when I started, it wasn't so much I was not being myself; it was more I was positioning a side of myself I wanted to present, I guess.
Yeah.
And I think actually I found streaming significantly easier when I dropped that and sort of was I am and you've met me a couple of times in person. I'm sure. Well, I hope you would agree at least. I'm very much the same on and off stream, and I've found streaming as an experience significantly easier once I've done that. It's a big
Oh,
step to do as
entirely.
well because I know a lot of people get on edge about being themselves for all kinds of reasons. But it made a big difference to me in my experience with streaming when I basically said, look, just be yourself, and if people like you, they'll stay. As opposed to if they like what you're doing when you're pretending to be someone that you're not, there's always that fear of, will they stay if I'm actually myself and the longevity of keeping up a front. So, not that I was again in any way disingenuous when I started. It just I wasn't entirely my loud, ridiculous, foolish self, which I am at least now on stream.
And I think that's important as well. I think the most fun I think I've had in streaming has been when I've been able to be myself fully and had got past that, oh, I'm gonna be the character that I need to be. It's just no, be yourself, be your most authentic self, and people will be there because people generally like people.
Exactly. I
So
think the
sorry.
sorry, just the only other thing I sort of had on that was that I think, when I thought about what my USP in streaming was, I mean, the view is always that whatever you do in life, there'll always be someone better than you, but there is no one better at being you than you. And I think that was one of the sort of the defining principles behind my change, saying, look, there are going to be people who are better at playing Pokemon than me, more interesting, funnier, better, more knowledgeable, but the only concoction that makes me unique is me being me. So if I don't own into that, then I felt I was inherently doomed to fail as a result.
And all your accents as well. You can't forget those. I know
What?
you're being you, but being Scottish you or being geezer you are both equally acceptable.
Whistler and Vizsla are
Ah,
equally represented.
yes. So, what really drew you to Pokemon as a streaming kind of start? I know you mentioned you played it with your flatmates and they kind of got into it. Was that what then drove the like, well, I might as well play Pokemon? Or has it always been that kind of ever-present source for you?
I think it going back to the sort of the genuine point, it was more that sort of stream what I want to play as opposed to having, I think there's a number of benefits, I guess, to playing Pokemon. For example, it's relatively as games go low concentration. You're ultimately pressing A and moving around compared to some games where you have to really concentrate when you're playing them. So your ability to interact with chat and other people becomes much easier when you're playing something like Pokemon than if you're playing something like Fortnite or something really competitive where you have to be concentrating all the time. And I think, obviously, Pokemon's a franchise that I've played since it came out, really. I was very young at the time that the Red and Blue came out, so I sort of had the advantage of playing the games as they came out really from the start and sort of enjoying the technological advances that each generation came with it. But it's also something that I am quite knowledgeable about. It's something that I do enjoy playing. And actually, Mike, as I said, not coming from a sort of let's call it an openly or publicly gaming background at all, I had no real idea what the Pokemon community was like, or what compared to any other community like a Call of Duty community, or or the GTA community. I had no real concept of that, so that didn't factor into it. I suppose it was more just what do I want to play, and therefore what would make me the most interesting to do so. And ultimately, at the end of the day, as I say, it's a hobby, so it's got to be fun for me.
I 100% get where you're coming from with that. I've tried streaming Overwatch. Very difficult. Very difficult to both stream Overwatch and pay attention to chat, because you're worried about like, oh, what's my positioning like? Where's the enemy? Also, who's redeemed what? Okay, now what? I've got to do that, but I'm playing. Whereas Pokemon is very much minimal inputs. And still a lot of fun to be had, and it really is a kind of a perfect blend for that kind of streaming style that we all seem to maintain.
And I think that's one of the interesting things about sort of when I first tried some of the more variety stuff. I think we did. I think Jedi Survivor was the first sort of different game that we tried, and then we did Spider-Man, then we did the most recent Battlefront 2, the OG re-release, which obviously wasn't particularly well received in terms of the launch itself, but I had a great time. And actually, when I was playing that, it was so much more interesting to see the engagement in terms of both new people coming into the chat, but also the sort of the dynamic that I was hitting. It was because I always backed myself on Battlefront as a kid, because I didn't play online games. I sort of just always play like the campaign or quick start modes or any of that stuff. So then to get to play it on Twitch and then have people come in being like, you aren't supposed to hit them right. I was like, it was very humbling. All in good humor, and I think that's it, right? It's sort of, you realize just, however good you think you are at things, other people are infinitely better.
Sure.
If you try and do something with the goal of being the best, you've got to make sure you're actually good at it.
Well, that is very, very true, and I've been humbled before, and I'm sure it will happen again. Just back to Pokemon for a second, though. What's your favourite? Now, I think I know the answer here, but I've got to ask.
It'd be rude not to, I suppose. Well, I it's a three-way tie for me. It varies day to day between Trico, Grovyle, and Sceptile. Just a truly perfectly designed mon, and just when you think it can't get any better, they give it a Mega Evolution, which has my favorite typing. So, fourth we count Mega Sceptile, but you know what? I'll call it 3 for now. But yeah, it varies between those.
That's fair, and that is nothing less than I expected. Now, you say you've grown a lot over the last couple of years since you started streaming, and mentioned that obviously, like I've seen a lot of that. I can't say I've seen everything. It would be big to assume I had. That would be wild. I've not seen that for anyone apart from myself. But it has been great watching you grow on Twitch. I know what my favourite moment has been, but do you have a favourite moment in your streaming journey so far?
Well, that's very kind of you, Miranda. Favorite moment? I think there's a couple. I think it would be crazy not to mention the end of the Soul Link, which I did with Golden Bro, where the two of us took down Black and White after 26 attempts in a randomized Soul Link. That was such an amazing experience. I think what was more amazing is not necessarily the fact that we beat the game. It's more, when we were streaming as a pair, we had literally about 50 people jumping from one stream to the other to watch each other do the Elite Four, then the champion, and to have that sort of moment of, you know, Golden Bro going first and me going second, so the pressure was on me a lot. It was a really nice moment to sort of to get that over the line. I think because it was probably the first time where I felt like I felt entertaining. Where it was a sort
Yeah,
of
you
thing
you
that
had a group of people waiting on your every move between the two of you, and
yeah,
it was
exactly.
fantastic to see. That was obviously my favorite standout memory of
Mm,
your streaming so far. Now there have been many highlights, but that one stands above the rest. And I heard an old adage about wrestling, of all things, once, which described a great wrestling match as having moments, and that is forever a moment. You and Grant
mm,
going backwards and forwards across the two streams, watching each other take on the Elite Four one at a time. That was something really impressive. I mean, the whole series was. Back to
it
the
was a treat to do.
the questionable names early on to the victory at the end.
I think the advantage is I was doing it with a very good friend. I
Yeah.
think the history of the Soul Link is just something I could frankly do an entire episode on. But
Hey,
actually having
maybe
that
we will
having
one
that
day.
maybe we will. But I think again when you do something like that, it was a culmination of a lot of things. When we started the Soul Link, I not that follower count matters too much now, but it does matter hugely when you're starting. And both of our communities are like 2.5 times bigger by the time we finished than when we
Mm.
started. And it was our first collab with anyone. Um, it was very much a real trusting exercise for the two of us, and we both took a leap of faith in each other. So to see it pay off, both in terms of the engagement on stream, but more importantly, as far as I'm concerned, the friendship that developed off stream was just really nice. And I think again, it was one of the big drivers to be myself and everything else. I suppose the other sort of highlight from my perspective has been Nuzlocke and Load. I suppose I don't know
You've
necessarily whether we
predicted
count
where
that.
I'm going next. So
Yeah,
if I just jump to this, I was
please.
going to say, well, we've just gotten to the end of Nuzlocke and Load 2, which, in
Mm,
my opinion, was a huge success. But I'm
thank
curious
you.
to get your thoughts because obviously you've put so much time and effort into
Mm,
this event and had to deal with a lot of issues with various questions, and there's a lot to answer. Issues is maybe
mm.
the wrong word, but to the point that
Sometimes the right words, to be fair.
to the point that this year you had Verin, myself, and Saltire all there to help kind of field those questions.
Mm.
But how do you think it went?
I think it was really good. I think the second iteration certainly surpassed the first, and I think what's exciting for me is the is the fact that actually when you set out to do this kind of stuff, you always have a goal in mind for where you'd like it to go, and to see it actually hit that goal was fantastic. And I don't necessarily mean in terms of like number of people taking part, but it was fantastic. We got I think 105 in the first year, 114 in the second year.
That was going to be one of
Um,
my follow-ups, was how many people.
yeah,
That's
sorry.
wild. 114. No, no,
Yeah,
I'm glad
it
it's
was
come up
great.
organically rather than me reading from a script. 114. That
Indeed.
is that is so impressive, my friend.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, again, it was as you say. I mean, we did have a big team this year. I think, I think the potential of this tournament is so huge that actually, whilst part of me has to remember that the whole thing started because I wanted to do an anniversary tournament to celebrate my affiliate anniversary, where we were hoping for 10, 15 people. Because the idea is that I'm a Nuzlocke who was converted to shiny hunting, and I wanted to basically create a tournament that allowed other people to go the other way. So trying Nuzlocking for people who are either new to streaming or new to Nuzlocking generally, or indeed just new to Pokemon. And so it's why the culture of the tournament, in terms of being supportive to new people and encouraging people to take a chance, has been so paramount. So to not only see that culture reinforced by a lot of people taking part, but also seeing people starting streaming for the first time just to be involved and having, I think around 25 people starting in Nuzlocke for the very first time this year, around 30 the year before. That's what I'm most proud of, really. Not necessarily I think when people see this kind of tournament, they must think, oh, this will do wonders for your own engagement and stuff. But actually, the focus has always been, or my mantra has always been, I wanted to create a tournament that I wish I'd had when I was trying to get to affiliate.
Oh, for sure.
And hopefully we've managed to get that culture balance right.
It's very much the same kind of feelings I've had with the shiny hunting tournaments and stuff, that it's very much, it's beneficial to people to have these kind of events because it's got that pre-built in group of people that you can network with and get to know. And people often throw around networking as a negative concept, but you need to network. You need to be friends. You don't need to be friends, but it helps. If you've got, maybe you start talking to someone, planning something for the Nuzlocke, and you end up being there with each other in each other's streams, and that really builds that rapport and helps build that wider community. And it has been fantastic seeing, I forget how many people it was, but you had people start streaming, as you mentioned, for this tournament who hadn't streamed, and it's just really cool to see.
It's humbling as hell. It's humbling as hell, that's for sure.
I can imagine. Has it given you like much to think on and to look at within yourself and work on there, or is it very much this has actually gone to plan?
I think it's gone to plan kind of thing, really. I think I think in terms of the limitations, and I've been requesting feedback from the tournament, and a lot of people have very kindly obliged and filled out forms and stuff because, again, I'm a data nerd. I live for this stuff. But I think the tournament has gone as well as I could have hoped across both years, and I think actually my sort of goal really has been push it as far as you can realistically do on your own. And I think we have got to that stage. So I think what my hope is for future tournaments, I mean, I've got so many ideas for not only what the next tournament's going to be, where it's going to be, but the format of it, the execution of it, like, for example, something that I'm really keen on and have already lined up actually is someone coming in to purely run social media for the tournament and stuff, and trying to build it out into a genuine sort of Pokemon event outside of whilst it is a big community of 100 streamers, why can't we hit 500? Why can't we hit 1,000? I think there is a real opportunity here. So
for sure, it's there for the taking, and I think that this tournament has grown substantially despite the volume of people taking part jumping by 9. It feels a lot bigger this year and a lot more inclusive. There's a lot of people who are kind of figuring things out for the first time, as you've mentioned. I know I completed my first Nuzlocke doing this, which is
absolutely
wild.
Many congratulations.
Thank you. It's just because I failed so many more previously.
How was that feeling when you got over the line for the first time?
Relief, massive relief, because I knew I could do it.
Yeah.
And I was hoping to do it deathless.
Was it a bit of a vindication moment for you?
I
know I can do this.
Very much so. Like, I know that game inside and out. So to finally be able to finish that was quite a huge moment for myself. But enough about me.
But that's why the tournament was built, really. It was for those moments, and I think that's why my what I love most is getting the anecdotal feedback of, I don't want to name specific people because it's probably not fair on others, but there was one person I was in, in fact, over the last week, because we just finished last week, there were a couple of streams I was in where I was there for the finals, and I saw people, bursting into tears with happiness for completing their run, and, getting so swept away in the moment, and then just getting some wonderful DMs at the end saying, look, I'd never have considered streaming if it weren't for this, or I'd never have considered Nuzlocking if it weren't for this. Thank you so much. And actually, it's probably aged me 15 years doing the series, but
your hubris.
But when you have but when you have feedback like that, it's hard to not have a smile on your face about it and feel very proud. So
fantastic.
So yeah, it's great.
Well, my next final couple of questions for you really is what do you see yourself doing next? Have you got any goals for the coming months? Maybe another type lock, because you did a few type locks historically.
Yes, yeah, we've got quite a few things lined up. I think from my perspective, I really want to nail in the variety side of things. We've opened up on the Discord a variety recommendation section specifically for that, and there's a number of games that I've wanted to play that, seeing the popularity of The Last of Us first time playthrough sort of really got me thinking, well, what other amazing games are there that you haven't played that actually, this would be great fun to have someone, navigate this game.
Cough, cough. With Dragon Age Inquisition, cough.
Well, I was going to say, so it's a Dragon Age. I've actually played all the Dragon Age games. So I'm excited to see the fourth one, which I believe is coming out next year.
This year. It's coming out in the next 3 months, 4 months.
Is it
maybe.
Really?
There's a 20-minute gameplay video released yesterday. Please go watch it. I'm so excited.
I will certainly do that. My only sadness, though, is that despite all logic suggesting otherwise, the first two games are not available to play on the PlayStation 5. So in terms of taking my own choices over, that's going to be a bit of a interesting navigation to do. But anyway, that's a separate stuff. So the variety side of things, we've got loads of really exciting games that I'm excited to get stuck into. Nuzlocke and Load 3 next year. I think the immediate stuff is getting back to the Starter Lock series that we started. That I had a really good time with, that I'm excited to get back into. And my first Donathon as well. There's lots of new frontiers being covered. And it's all positive stuff really. I'm very excited about the future, I'd say.
Definitely. The future's bright for WizzlerPlays. Final question. Where can people find you?
You can probably hear me 100 miles away because I'm so bloody loud. But if you want to come and find me anywhere, you can either go to WizzlerPlays on Twitch, on Twitter, on Instagram, or indeed Nuzlocke and Loads, where we've got a Twitter for that as well, and actually working on building a website for it as well. So should you want to sign up, there are things, there will be ways in which you can do that via the website ahead of the tournament coming next year. So all over the place, I'm normally there.
Thanks to Wizzler for joining me. For those not in the know, a type lock is a run of a Pokemon game using only one type of Pokemon, usually with Nuzlocke rules too. Again, big thanks to WizzlerPlays for joining me, and thank you for tuning in. Next up, I'll be catching up with Whimsical Sage, so be sure to check in again in 2 weeks from now. You can find us on Twitter at EchoedVoicePod. Our website is echoedvoice.podbean.com. And you should be able to find us on podcasting platforms. You can find me on pretty much every social platform at BlueEmolga. And until next time, keep being wonderful.